Edition.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Access All Areas. Today I'm joined by the AFL's General Manager of Football Operations, Mark Evans. And Mark, thanks for coming in for a chat. Let's start straight away with the match review panel. What changes are in the offing for 2014?
Oh, to this point in time, I've done very little with the match review panel and/or tribunal. The system has been running now for a number of years. I'm prepared to look at some things at the end of the year in our normal review of the tribunal match review panel. But for me, it might be about creating more clarity for people so they understand the impact of prior record or good record or carryover points, or trying to make some of those things simpler. I'm sure there'll be other tweaks along the way.
I get the feeling you think there's too many points carried over and dropped off and reduced and added. Is that fair to say, that you just want to reduce the confusion around all those points being added up when you get an incident as it is?
I accept that there can be confusion within that. You really have to study the impact of those points to try and work it out. But I think the end person listening to the outcome really looks at weeks. Is it a reprimand? Did it get off? Did it end up with 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? So I think we need to try and find a way to either communicate that better. The system did change over the summer, where the prior record has been modified so that only the last 2 years count, and only any sanctions of 2 weeks or more count towards that. I think that's helped, but it still creates confusion in the public.
Yep. Mark, free kicks, there's less being paid in 2014 than there were at the start of the year. Have a look at this graphic if you can. On the weekend just gone, 33 free kicks on average per match against the 45.5 rounds 1 and 2, which was about the time you started in this game. You've been sending this message to umpires to just tone it down a bit?
No, I haven't. In fact, the free kicks average around 38 and 2 50-metre penalties per round. That's exactly the same as it was last year. So I think you'll see that there have been some fluctuations from the start of the year. A part of that is umpires themselves bedding into the new season. It does look like they have cleaned up a few of the errors from the start of the year, maybe where they were blowing the whistle a bit too quickly on some
But no
things.
Instruction from you to tone that down?
No instruction to me.
Nothing implied?
So nothing from me at all, just good umpiring and good umpiring coaching. But the challenge moving forward, I think, is how do we get our umpires into round 1, round 2, round 3, into a better phase, a far more consistent phase, and I don't think we'll have this conversation.
Yep. In round 9, James Hird, Essendon coach, referred to a briefing from Jeff Geeshan prior to the game against Richmond. Richmond didn't get that briefing. Other coaches were a little bit bemused about not receiving the same information James received in that particular week. Can you take us through what happened there?
It's pretty simple, because it wasn't a briefing about any change in umpiring or any philosophical move or shift in the way we want umpires to go about their business. It was a conversation that Jeff had with one coach, as he would with plenty of coaches on specific issues relating to them. There's been no direction, philosophical change to say put the whistle away and only pay the absolute major free kicks. That has actually been the philosophy of umpiring for a number of years. But they would have recognised their performances at the start of the year weren't consistent enough. I'd have to say over the last 5 or 6 weeks, when people have been saying that umpiring's better, the umpires are still coming out of those games saying we have missed free kicks that we want to pay. They're not satisfied with their level of performance. That's what you call elite performance, when people are always trying to correct the errors they're making.
So nothing special for Essendon on that occasion? Nothing
special for Essendon, and I'm sure that plenty of other coaches will have had conversations or meetings with Hayden Kennedy, Rowan Saws, Brian Sheehan and Jeff along the way.
We'll stick with umpires for a moment. Players dropping the knees and ducking their head. It's been an age-old practice. Having this one here a couple of weeks ago, Jack Riewoldt there, getting a free kick for that particular incident. We'll just have another look at it here from another angle. Do you agree there's a free kick there?
No, to me it looks like Jack has initiated that contact. If he'd had stayed in that position, there might be a chance.
Just cutting here. This is Luke Shuey the week after, where he didn't get the free kick. Yeah, so just back on the Riewoldt decision.
Yeah, I think Jack has accentuated himself into that contact, but the question is, what would have happened if he didn't? Would that have still been a tackle that rose up above the shoulder? It's worth us looking at players that draw free kicks, and it's very difficult for an umpire seeing that in full speed. We get the beauty of slowing it down and watching it time and time again. The umpires have to make a split-second decision, and it's very, very difficult. Your natural instinct is to protect the head of a player and to pay the free kick for that. So I did see some on the weekend where there was a clear duck and the umpire called play on initially and then called holding the ball. But it is a very, very difficult situation for umpires.
So you'd rather than just call that play on in most examples of that type of incident?
They need to use their discretion as to whether the tackler has come in too recklessly in that tackle and it was going high anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, we do need to try and find some consistency around that.
Just one more on that. With Luke Shuey, you mentioned before you look at players who draw free kicks. Do you look at the players who have traditionally drawn free kicks for that type of incident and you tell the umpires to be careful of these Luke Shuey types?
Well, I don't, because I'm not an umpire and I'm not an umpiring coach. That's up to the coaches and the umpires themselves. But it would be... I think we'd have to understand that umpires would look at individuals as to how they participate in the ruck or types of free kicks that would come up or players who niggle off the ball. That would be good umpiring if they were looking into those things.
Yep. What you bring to footy, Mark, is as a club background as well, and I know that clubs, generally speaking, would like a moratorium on rule changes. Laws of the game, you've now got your hands on that as well. What do you expect there? Will there be a period of time where there's no rule changes?
Well, we talk about that, don't we? We talk about no rule changes, but every time I hear someone, they see something they don't like, they turn around to the AFL and say, well, you fix it. So what do you want? Do you want a moratorium, or do you want us to fix things if we think we can make the game better? My opinion is that if you can make something better, you have a go at it.
What needs to be made better?
Well, there's a few things. You've talked about players drawing head-high contact or in the back free kicks. I think we need to look at that. Yep. I was really pleased to see the change to the throw-up around the ground instead of the bounce down around the ground, and that seems to have created a little bit more openness at stoppages, so pleased about that. And the sliding rule, I'm amazed as to how the players have adapted to that. You see the game on Friday night in Sydney and players still holding their feet in those conditions and somehow clearing the ball away from stoppages. Only 24 I think throw-ups around the ground. A lot of boundary throw-ins, but still some things there that we can perhaps even tweak a little bit better.
With year 2 of free agency coming up, compensation awarded in year 1 and it's been locked in again for year 2. By the time we talk about free agency in 2014, will there be compensation for clubs which lose players?
We put it on the table to clubs to tell us what they think. I don't think we'll change anything for this year, but there has been a strong suggestion that you don't need to provide free agency compensation for players who are unrestricted free agents. That either means they've been on the list for 8 years and they sit outside the top quartile of player payments, or they've been at that club for 10 years and given their service. So I think that's worthwhile looking at.
And just one before we do finish up, the Essendon situation. I know the AFL hasn't and can't comment on so many aspects of it. There's a fair bit of talk around now that their premiership points could well be lost in this particular season. Can I just put that to you as head of footy ops? Well,
let me tell you right from the outset, the AFL's commentary around this has not changed from day one. It cannot prejudice the investigation or any of the individuals involved. So the AFL's position all the way through has been to make sure that a thorough investigation is conducted, and then once all of those details have been made available to the AFL and to the AFL Executive and Commission, then decisions can be made from there. So the AFL's line on this has been very consistent. In terms of what happens, that is a Commission decision. There are a range of possibilities. If the Commission decided that there was some breach that needed to be acted upon, that could include a whole range of things, from fine, could be draft picks, it could be either dealing with individuals or anything else.
And premiership points amongst that raft of possibilities?
It's certainly within the scope of the Commission to do that, but that's a Commission decision once everything's been tabled.
Yep. Thanks for joining us on Access All Areas, Mark.
Thanks, Damien.
I'll be back with Luke Darcy next Monday for a normal edition of Access All Areas, but until then, have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.